After a long journey fighting the orcs and searching for the One Ring, our character Colby has returned. That's right. I'm back.
He's back.
I'm here.
He's back.
I almost forgot what it was like.
I missed you.
I missed you too. It was while I was fighting off the orcs, I just kept picturing your face, and it gave me something to keep moving forward. And honestly, I don't think I'd be here if it wasn't for you. So I really appreciate it. And we survived back from Middle Earth, and now here in the middle of a lot of snow, which is all right. We're dealing with it, going. But yeah, we're here. We're back with another episode, and I think with it being basically Christmas Eve, which is crazy to think about. It's time's been flying by, but I think it's always a nice time to think back, reflect on the year, and do so with purpose, right? And really take some time to think about how things went, be honest with yourself, see where things maybe could have been improved, what went well, all that. And I think it's something that maybe we all do to some degree, but sometimes sitting down and talking to another person about it and then having other people also be listening can bring a different degree to it. So maybe, by listening to us do some reflection, it can help with you in that direction too. But yeah, we figured it'd be cool to just think about what the past year looks like.
Yeah, dude. It's like the year goes by so fast, but a lot happens, man. It's weird. It's weird. So I would imagine it's gonna be easy for us to kind of ramble endlessly. So maybe we should jump straight in. So would you like to kick us off, sir, with some thoughts on your 2024 as it comes to a close?
It's funny because I think we always talk about reflection in general through this podcast and over the years. It's something that's kind of ingrained, but also just actually having to sit down and do it. I guess because right before the podcast, I was like, I should probably think a little bit. And as I was thinking, I was like, damn, it's been a year. and honestly, it's in good and I don't even want to say bad, good and tough, maybe. So I think to start off in the beginning of the year, it was, I think starting off with 2024 was rough. It was, and a lot of it, and this will kind of be a theme to spoil it, but a lot of it was kind of created by myself. So I think I went into the year thinking that I was already behind, right? Because in my mind, I told myself that 2023 was the year that I'd finish my PhD and I'd be done with that. And 2024, new beginning, time to hit the ground running and just, move on to the next page. So when the year started and I was still doing some writing and still going back and forth with revisions, I felt like I kind of failed and that I was already behind. I was like, all right, cool, day one, and I'm already not where I want to be. So that was really weird because that's not usual for me, right? So I think from the start, I had to really just kind of address these foreign feelings, these foreign thoughts. And the word foreign was something that I noticed I wrote a lot in my journal, just throughout the days of just trying to get stuff out of my mind and just these new things that I was trying to navigate. So I think it was everything just felt like it was taking longer. It felt like I was kind of kept hitting these walls and I wasn't really making progress, though in the grand scheme of things, I kind of was. But I think a lot of it came down to me having these expectations that I would be done, right? So I think I kind of set myself up in that way to feel these things. Obviously, a lot easier to think that and see that looking back. But in the time, I didn't know that, right? But I think that's where this reflection part is so cool, where it's like, wow, I maybe put a lot more on my mind and myself than I maybe could have or should have, rather. So yeah, I think it just felt, general burnout, felt like I was behind, felt like the typical push that you get at the beginning of this new year, I didn't get, or if I got it, it also burnt out really quick. So I was just like, well, what do I do? And things were just tough. So I think in the moment, again, everything was new, it was difficult, but I think I did an okay, or rather a good job of taking it day by day, right? Because I had to really face my thoughts, face myself, and face these things that maybe I pushed to the side during the PhD, right? And that was things that came to face when I came home, right? Because I talked about briefly before, when I came home and navigating that whole space was new, right? So I think that first year being back was addressing a lot of that, and I think I made progress there. But going into the new year, I thought, okay, it's going to be different, and it was, but it was still some lingering stuff, and then all this new stuff on top of that, right? So I think it was a different degree and a bit more focused because of the PhD stuff, where I was like, okay, did I did I make the right decision in coming back home this early? Like, should I have stayed in New Zealand and continued to do the PhD there? Or, like, am I actually going to finish this PhD? Right? Thoughts that you're like, oh, damn, those are things I didn't really think would come up. So, yeah, it started off rough, but I think I did a good job of, doing what felt right. And a lot of times it was doing some things, trial and error, right? Didn't go well, adjust, go from there, adjust, go from there. But the trend was very slow, but in the direction of positive, right? So I think it was, looking back, I'm very grateful that I just tried taking steps, no matter how small. And I think it really made a difference, though it's very hard to see that when you're in the midst of it, right? Because you're like, I'm going nowhere. But it's like, I made it out of the house today. I went to training, and instead of coming straight home after training, I went to the store and I did other stuff. And like, I forgot that I could do stuff because I was like, okay, school, work, train, sleep, that's it. And then I was like struggling to do other things because I felt like it was quote unquote wrong to do other things because I needed to be doing the PhD. So yeah, all these kind of foreign things coming into mind. And then started to see some light at the end of the tunnel, right? Because it's like, okay, I'm going to be submitting soon. So when I submitted, it felt better, but not really good because it was like, okay, submitted, but now I have to wait 3-ish months until I actually do my defense. So I, again, try to use that to my advantage and say, here's some momentum, here's some change. Let's try to make it happen. And I did. I think that's when I switched up my gym, went to a new gym, which I talked about in another episode before. That really helped to kind of feel anew and feel like things were different. Just more try to focus on the training side itself, focus on things that I could be doing. So that was helpful. But again, still kind of lingering in the back of my head. Well, you're not done. You got that defense coming up. You got to make sure you're ready for it. And did you do this? What about this? Can you go back and change this? So it was tough, but better. And I think I was just, that was something I kept repeating to myself. It's like, it's better. It's getting better. It's still tough, but like, you can do this kind of thing. So yeah, there was that. And then finally through the defense, it's interesting because I did it all online, right? So you're at the computer, you're sitting there, and you do your defense, and like, well, yeah, congratulations, you did it. And I said, thanks. And I signed off the computer, and it's like 9:30 p.m. and I'm just sitting there, and I'm like, oh, that's it, it's done. And it was more of a like, okay, it's done. Now what? But also getting hit really hard by it's done in like still like quotation. So I had to, like, I went to sleep and I woke up and I felt different. Like, okay, there's some good stuff here. But also, kind of like I talked about before, a lot of the other stuff started to resurface where it's like, okay, now that you're done, you need to figure your life out. So, like, in a nice way, cool, I can have something else to think about. But also, again, maybe a place where I put too much pressure on myself to be like, okay, you need to figure out exactly what you're going to do for the next 5 years, and every hour of your day is planned out. So again, maybe not the greatest approach, but again, grateful that I was able to go through that, because then again, you learn, you adapt, you build these skills, and then like going into this new year coming ahead, you feel better, right? And I think we're always after some kind of progress in that sense, and there's going to be times where it's tough. So yeah, I think over time that got better, especially after the defense. And I remember it was around the time where I went to like this big anime convention. So that felt really good because I'm like, okay, I'm doing stuff now. Weather's getting better. That's cool. I can be outside a little bit more. Not that like I wasn't outside during the winter, but it's honestly harder because there's snow out, there's ice out, it's cold. So it's giving me more reasons and more chances to be outside, to do things. And it's like also made me, again, like I said, other things resurfacing. So I realized that again, a lot of things I did poorly. And one of those things that I didn't like was that I was not the greatest friend, right? I think I shut out a lot of people. Again, maybe not on purpose, but it was one of those things where every time like people would reach out or I would reach out to people, I was always afraid in the back of my head. They'd be like, hey, how's the PhD going? And I didn't want to talk about it because it's like, it's not going well. Or like, at least I'm not doing the greatest. And and then you get that so many times, like, man, I don't want to talk about this. Or like, hey, what's next? Like, what are you doing next? I'm like, I don't know. So it's right. So it's, in my mind at the time, it was like survival instincts. Like, just don't even talk. And looking back, not the greatest thing, right? Maybe it worked a little bit, but I think I paid for it in the end, which, again, not the greatest thing, but I think it also really shone a light onto things that are important. which are your friends, and are, talking to those people and keeping them in touch and all that, even talking about those bad things, because it's good to talk about it. So yeah, I think that it was as all those things were resurfacing, I was really trying my best to use that as an opportunity to learn and grow and make amends, if you would, and just be better in ways. So it was nice because I started seeing some progress with that, and I started to take steps further, and it was nice to get that momentum through that too, whereas coming out of all that, I felt rough. So it was good. And I think through that too, then came like 3 big pivotal moments that really made a difference, and really changed 2024 for me. And they all kind of happened towards the end, which is cool, because it's also kind of a testament to, like, a year is a long time. A lot can happen, even if things don't start off great. Like, they can change, and it's important to just keep taking those steps forward, to be as positive as you can, to be flexible, right? All these things that we always talk about in regards to training, nutrition, but also life. So I think the first one, and I know people can be like, of course, you would say that, is when we had our first call, you and I, right?
Yeah,
It really was.
yeah.
And because I remember when it was a time where you were just trying to figure out PhD stuff and like what things look like afterwards. We had a call with Eric about it, and we were talking on Instagram, and I was like, dude, I would like to share my experience, because it wasn't too fun, but there's a lot of things that I did poorly, but I want you to recognize that and maybe learn from that too. So there's me coming from that aspect where it's like, okay, I didn't like feeling that way. I don't want others to feel that way. Let me share my thoughts. So I started with that, and then a little bit selfishly in the back of my head, I'm like, this can help me too, because sometimes again, talking about it's nice, and then I get a chance to talk to you, which is really good, because it's like I said, if you haven't noticed before, we had very brief conversations through Instagram over the years, right? Like, and then
It's
you're like,
funny to think back on.
it is,
It's really
and
funny.
that's why, like, this pivotal moment is so important and special to me, because it's like what it looked like and felt like to me was kind of in this hole, and like I'm reaching out my hand up towards you. You're at the top of the hole, and I'm like, dude, just like help. And I never said those words. I never really expressed those things, and you still came at it with such open mind, such compassion, such love, and it's like it helped me so much. And like I don't know if you know it, but it really did. And it was like, because again, at the end of that call, it was just like, hey, we should just work together in some capacity. I don't know what it looks like, but I just want to be around you more, because you're just a good human being.
Yeah.
And literally, like, lights, like, things made sense. The direction was there. I had more like purpose after that call. I was like running up and down the house like a little kid. I'm like, let's go, like
Yeah, man.
we're doing stuff, like. And I remember from that point on, it literally, like, I was seeing things in life so much differently. I felt like I had more purpose. I felt like I had more drive. I was thinking differently, and I was like, because I wanted to I wanted to make you proud in a way, right? Where it's like, hey, like, you're trusting in me. Like, again, we don't really know each other, but you're like, yeah, you're let's just do this thing. Let's do something. And like,
Yeah.
damn, for someone of your caliber and of a human being, as a researcher, as a coach, an athlete, all these things, to have that trust in me, just as a random dude from Rhode Island, you're like, yeah, let's do it. I'm like, okay, I can't let him down. I can't let myself down. And this is something that's important to me. So I think, yeah, that was huge. And from there, just so much good things came. Like, training was better. Bodybuilding stuff was better.
Yeah.
I just was able to work around all that momentum and all the stuff that, like, we're working on. So it's like, cool, I have to do this post, I have to do this recording at these times. So let me make sure my training's done by this time. I was able to schedule things out, actually, which before was tough to do, because I was like, okay,
Yeah.
I wake up, I gotta train, and then I gotta figure shit out. which the figure stuff out was so daunting, because I didn't know what that was supposed to look like.
Yeah.
But then when I started having these, again, direction and purpose, and even constraints in a way, like, okay, I only have 2 hours to quote unquote figure stuff out, it made me more purposeful in everything. So it was, yeah, that moment was huge and
Yeah.
extremely important to me, and I will always bring that up and keep saying how important it is to me, as many times as I feel like it's necessary, because it's important to say, right? And I just want you to
Yeah.
know how grateful I am for that. So
That's
yeah,
amazing.
that
Let
was
me interrupt for a second,
yeah.
dude. Because, like, first of all, thank you so much for everything you said. That's incredible. This was it's amazing to me. Like, it really hits home the idea of, like, you never know what somebody else is dealing with, because you're not seeing through their eyes, right? You see through just your own perspective. And like, to me, like, I had the same experience of, I was just like, you were higher up on the totem pole than me, like it felt like the roles were reversed. And so, I had the same things. I was just like, man, it's cool that this dude is taking time to talk to me, or like, it's cool that, like it really was the same emotions. And then, I didn't know the everything that you'd been, kind of going through over the year, and dealing with at the time. And, I was, as we'll kind of talk about, dealing with some kind of similar things. And it's so cool how it's, this is so cliche, but it's almost like one of those, it was kind of meant to be kind of things. Like, the timing was right. We both are just so similar, and we both kind of knew that immediately. It's love at first sight, bro. That's what it was.
Yeah.
You
I'm
just
glad you
know.
said it, because I was feeling it. I'm like, I don't know if I should say it, if it's too early, if he's gonna think I'm weird or something.
But yeah, like, I mean, that's, sometimes it really is like that, right? You just, when you click with somebody, you just, know. And I've had the same, not to spoil my reflection too much, but like, I've had the same experience of, when you get some kind of structure, you get somebody else to hold you accountable, somebody else that you want to make them proud. Like, all that stuff helps so much. And like, that feeling of, I think it's two things, right? Like, it's the feeling of moving, of a purpose, of moving towards something, you're making progress in something. That's so satisfying. But then having a creative outlet also so satisfying. And it's cool that, at least in this sense, they both can kind of happen at the same time. And we're checking a lot of boxes with the training arc, and it's just been fantastic. So I just wanted to say that I appreciate you, man.
Yeah.
And okay, now you can.
Yeah. Well, no, thank you for that. I appreciate that too. And yeah, like you said, it's just, we're able to do so many things with this, and it's cool, and it's so important, and it's fun. Like, we started out too, and starting with what our values are and all that, and the direction we want to take this. We're like, we just want to have fun. We just want to, we love talking about bodybuilding and just talking in general, and sharing our journey, anime related, if not, or book related, all these things. And people want to tag along, that's great too. And I think that's always going to be the case. We'll still be here doing these things, like, regardless of who's else is going to show up, and it's like, we're having fun. So yeah, I think very first pivotal moment, that was just super amazing for me, and it was like, it gave me so much purpose, direction, all that stuff. So I've been riding that momentum going forward. And then the second one, which I've talked about a little bit before too, was experiencing WNBF Worlds. Right. And it's funny, because that was like a month ago. So this all happened pretty late in the year. So again, like, things, like, first half a little bit rough, second half got a big push from you in the training arc, and then it's like really coming full circle in a way. So okay, WMF Worlds, experiencing this, and like, damn, this is where I belong, right? Like, the bodybuilding scene, the competition, the people, right? Like, seeing a community where people are also warm, welcoming, understanding, and in it for all the same reasons. Right? We just want to be better people. We want to be not just better bodybuilders and have insane physiques, but just enjoy that pursuit of progress, right? And another one of our values that we always talk about, and be able to lift others up along the way and inspire other people and just do it. And it's that was super eye-opening and super cool. And then just not only just experiencing the athletes compete and seeing like how they carry themselves and seeing them talk off stage, but just seeing and meeting some of the people that I've looked up to for like 10 plus years, right? Like, meeting Alberto Nunez, Jeff Alberts, like Chris Barakat, seeing all these people and be like, damn, like, I've been online and watching you forever. And like hugging you, it was like, because I had to get a hug from Berto, obviously. So I was like, dude, come here. And just like damn, he's real. He's a real person. And it's that's the thing, they're all real people, and a lot of them are all really good human beings, and was super cool to see and feel. And I think that was a big thing too. I was feeling a lot during that, right? I was there taking my notes during this stuff, like, how I was feeling and what I was noticing, things to be prepared for when I end up competing. But it was like really sitting in the moment and feeling stuff was nice too. Like, I remember when I first showed up and I sat right in the middle. Of course, I was like, I want the best seat. And there's nothing on stage, no people. They just have the screen in the back there. It says WMF Worlds. I'm sitting there, and I just got chills. I'm like, damn, like, I'm here. This is cool. This is it. And then everything else just started to fall into place. Where meeting some new people and having some very nice conversations, and meeting some great people and making more connections for the future, to just be along with other great people. It was cool. So I think that was really comforting, really important to me, especially because, of how tough the beginning of the year was. And also, like, one of the things that I kept feeling was like I didn't know kind of where I belonged in a way, right? Because I've always loved bodybuilding. I know it's a place I want to be, but I haven't competed before. I haven't been in that space really. The online space is still very new to me. I'm just kind of been an observer. So it was, especially after coming from New Zealand, where you're in school, you're around all these people, coming home and like not physically being with many people, or even struggling to make new friends and find a community. I felt that instantly at WMF Worlds, and it was only for 2 days, right? And these people then all went to other sides of the world, but I still felt connected, and I think that was, again, speaks volumes to what that is and what bodybuilding is and can do. So that was very, again, that was nice, and I really just held on to those feelings and the direction that gave me too, and it was, yeah, I really like that. So yeah, that's kind of the second big thing there, that really gave a lot of purpose. So that was cool. And then kind of the last thing, which just happened like a week ago, I was going back to New Zealand for graduation, and I don't want to diminish the whole PhD thing itself, but like I just kind of went there for graduation and did the graduation, and outside of that, it was not for school. It was there for seeing people and experiencing the country a bit more. I didn't get to do much traveling because I was just in the same area, but just mainly being able to see people that I hadn't seen in 2 years plus, and then just again feeling a lot of things, because I think same idea where maybe I wasn't the greatest friend for the past couple of years, just coming back and having people still welcome me with like open arms and be like, dude, like it's okay, like we all go through shit, right? And just picking up where we left off, if not even a better spot, and recognizing that, hey, other people were struggling too, and I think that was really, that was real, and it was, again, feeling that community aspect of the thing was really nice, after not feeling it for a while, and just, yeah, it was, I think, and I don't want to sound conceited when I say this, but when someone else had said this, it really made me feel. They had said, when I left, it was like we lost the glue of the group and the family, and then stuff like that. And I was like, damn, it kind of made me tear up, because I felt purpose. I felt, after not realizing, like, I basically just forgot that I can actually make an impact, which is weird because, like, I don't know, so it's something you don't really think about, right? And when you actually see that and you see how you can affect others in real time, it's just like, especially after that's like a value that I have, right? I want to be able to make a difference in people's lives. I kind of forgot about that, which sucks, because when you forget those things that are important to you. But then when it hits you like that, you're like, damn, it kind of gives that whole purpose thing, the meaning, and it fills up that tank. And me and my friends kept saying this too, like we just filled up so many buckets this past week, or the past weekend, or the past 2 weeks, and like of friendship, of purpose, of love, of happiness, of doing stuff, and all these things. Like, damn, I didn't realize my buckets have been so empty, right? And it's oh, it was so nice. And like I said, I was there for graduation. The graduation ceremony was phenomenal, and it was really nice to kind of cap that off. But I think that's something we'll talk about in a bit more depth in a different episode. But like that was only a small part of it. Again, not to diminish that in any way, but it was, all the other things were so impactful, right? Just being able to chill with Eric, play some Street Fighter again. Like that was so cool, man. Like there was one instance where during the year where like things were tough and I was struggling, and one day he's like, yeah, do you want to come over, like talk about coaching stuff, or is it go over some learning things and we can just chill? I was like, yeah. And we did that. He was like taking me through how he approaches some of these coaching things. And then we ended up just playing Street Fighter for the first time together. And I was like, I don't know, I just felt like nothing else was like, there's no worries in the world. Like we're just chilling, lifting weights, talking about lifting weights, playing Street Fighter. I'm like, damn, this dude's such a good human being. So it was like things like that where I was able to relive or live like kind of for the first time and really feel those things and not have to feel the weight of the PhD on me was big, and that was transformative, and that was, again, a big part of the 2024, and it's something that's still gonna, it has filled me up and is going to fuel me up for years to come, right? Just kind of reassuring and reminding myself what's actually important, right? And knowing that even if you do lose yourself along the way, like a lot of stuff's still gonna be there, and it's, even if you do, like you have to still work at it too. And again, there's a lot of things I could have been better at and am getting better at, but it's nice knowing, knowing all those things and knowing that there are people there for you. Because again, sometimes you just forget that, and it's kind of weird to say, right? Because when you again have such a great support system in many ways, but regardless of what you have or what you think you have or where you're at, like it's sometimes it's just you just forget, right? So it was, man, it was great. It was such a great time. I think that was such a great way to kind of cap off the year in a way, right? And it's there's still a week or two left, but just also, and I talked to you briefly that just before, where it's like I'm making it such an important thing to me to not let that be a negative, because a lot of times, you know, you come from a concert, a travel, whatever it is, you get like post travel blues, right? You're like, oh shit, like it was so good and I saw that, and I'm trying my best not to let that happen. Instead, using it the opposite way. It's okay, like you're filled up, let's ride this wave as much as we can, and let's do it. And I've honestly done a good job of that, which I'm very proud of. Which is also I'm proud if I can say that, because like we talked about, sometimes it's hard to acknowledge that. But that's been really cool, and I'm just stoked to ride that into 2025 as well. And yeah, I think to kind of sum that all up, one word that I kind of comes to mind and that really resonates with me is metamorphosis. and I love butterflies because one, they're super pretty, but two, the idea of that metamorphosis going from caterpillar to cocoon to butterfly, something I always really like, because sometimes you forget you have to be the cocoon. And when you're in the cocoon, you turn into goo before you turn into this butterfly, right? And damn, like I turned into goo. I really did. And it was kind of, I don't know if I don't know if it was the first time, but it was one of the times that I felt it the most, right? And especially because it was so relevant, it's so real, it's so recent. And I was like, damn, feeling like goo sucks, but it's an important part of the process. And that's what it takes to become the butterfly, right? To become, and this is another reason why too, like Tyranitar is one of my favorite Pokemon. It goes from Larvitar to Pupitar to Tyranitar. So that idea of metamorphosis, but in like a different way, it is so cool, because Tyranitar is just badass, right? Like that's insane. Sure. So like I like that a lot. So it's, yeah, I think that was a big thing of experiencing all those things, not only just knowing about it and really going through it and feeling it and coming out feeling, I think, victorious might be in the word, right? Like I did a lot. I overcame a lot of stuff, good and bad, and it is all who I am. Because there's also a thing I reminded. It's like, oh shit, I'm also human. I also can feel things and feel things that aren't the greatest. Because I think being such a positive person and having such a positive outlook on stuff, sometimes I don't know if not neglect, but try to minimize the not so good feelings, because I'm like, okay, like that's you're a positive dude. Like you got to be positive so that other people can experience that too. Like you want to bring other people down, but like it's important to feel those things too, because again, sometimes you push them away too much, they build up, and then you hit you really hard. So I think I recognize that and have those skills now and the experience to kind of see what that's like, and again, very transformative and very beneficial. So it's like, yeah, and like I had said briefly before, I recognize a lot of this was very much done so, and like I put this on myself in a way, right? A lot of the things I made worse by overthinking about it, by making it into stuff that it wasn't. So that's also a skill that I kind of am relearning and learning in a different light, where like your thoughts really do matter. They really do. And how you frame things and look at things and acknowledge stuff is important. And even the slightest like negative thought or the slightest, downer can make a big impact. It can sit there and start to infest and grow and become something that's brutal, right? So it's important even more so just to like, address those feelings, to just try your best to take a step forward no matter how it is. So yeah. And I think I got to end this off on one of my favorite quotes and a lyric, maybe not a quote, but it's a quote in my mind, because this was something that, I love music. I think a lot of stuff I can recognize and resonate with through music, but especially during these hard times, I found that I was listening to a lot of Marlon Craft. So hip hop artist, very lyrical, very authentic, right? A lot of things that I resonate and value with. But there is one specific song, it's called Window Cracked. I'm going to read it word for word, the line, because I don't want to mess it up, because it's that good. Also, apologies if I mess this up, Marlon. I still love you. So here it is. It says, "It's on me now. No more guessing who's in charge. I got to figure out who Marlon is. The kid who played the hand he's dealt, and now the cards is his. Right? So like, it's one of those things where I felt like, again, not to say like, oh, my life's been so difficult. I've done so much stuff. I'm grateful. I had a lot of opportunities, all these things. But like, when you hit these hard stuff, sometimes you have to just deal the cards you're dealt. Right? And now I'm in this position where probably for the first time, I feel like cards are in my hands. I can do what I want. And whether that's true or not, like I actually can, or like this is the first time it's been that way, I really feel that way. So like, I'm like, damn, that's powerful. Because I remember listening to it so many times, and I'm like, that really, like, I get chills every time I hear that, and like it's really sticking with me. And now it's like, it helps it again all come full circle. It's like, dude, like, you're the pilot. You really are. Like, you control your thoughts, your actions. We're gonna go here. Yeah, shit, we're hitting some turbulence now. Like, oh damn, man. But it's like, you're gonna get through it, right? And then we're gonna get to the destination, and we're gonna enjoy the views on the way too, and all these things. And that's something that's gonna stick with me. But yeah, that's 2024. There's quite a bit there.
A lot, man.
Yeah.
It's a lot. I think it feels like I don't know, so much of it is like this just hugely positive note at the end of kind of finding solace in community and in the rewards of all the work that you put in and all of those things. But I think it all would have been much less appreciated had you not gone through some difficult times leading up to that, right? Like, I think it's so hard to deal with in the moment, but it's peaks and valleys, dude. I mean, that's so much of that. And I think that the more we're in a valley, it's hard to see that a peak is coming, but like, you can only go down so far, right? Eventually we're going to have an uptick in something, and who knows how long it's going to take. Who knows how much worse it's going to get before you get there, obviously, right? There's lots of variation with that, but like, there will be another peak coming at some point. And you found it, right? You stuck it out. You kept doing your thing. You kept, you didn't give up and quit the PhD. You didn't stop training and like, I'll forget this bodybuilding thing or what. Like, you just kept going. And that's, one of my favorite quotes too, right? Like, is there's this character in the book series, the Stormlight Archive. There's a character named Dalinar, and like, one of his things is he's trying to be a better person. That's like his biggest value. He's trying to make up for mistakes he made as a younger man. And one thing that he says is, if I must fall, I will rise again a better man. Because he knows he's going to make mistakes. He knows there's going to be bad times, but it's always, what can I learn from this? What can I take? And just keep trying to do better, right? And eventually, better things come, right? Eventually, right? So that's cool, man. I love that you had quite the character arc this year.
Yeah, really.
But I think it's been a really good one, and I love that you have such a optimism and excitement and purpose and all the good vibes as we head into the next year, and that you are also being intentional of riding that wave and of like, okay, awesome, this feels great, let's keep it going. Let's not just, you should definitely take time to relax and just enjoy it 100%. But I think where people can get in trouble sometimes is they relax a little bit too much, and now it's hard to start. There's inertia again, and we got to start it back up. So I think you're doing a great job of avoiding that inertia building up too much, and you're doing the thing, man. That's what it's all about.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, enough about me. What about your year, Jake?
I don't know, man. It's been a year. It's been a year. I think what comes to mind for me is like the word that comes to mind is like breakthrough. Which I don't want, it's not like I'm like crushing it in every way. Like, I'm not saying that at all. But I think I'm starting to see some things, right? Starting to see some things pay off, starting to see a direction with some things. Like, when that feeling where you're just like, man, I don't know what's going on. You're just like, there's no direction. You're not making any progress in anything. And then eventually you're like, oh, okay, at least I know now I should go this way or something. Like, that still feels like a breakthrough to me. Even if it's not successful, quote unquote, yet, you at least have a point in direction. So I think there's a bunch of stuff that kind of ticks a lot of those boxes for me from this year. Like on the easiest example, I think, is on the training front. You know, like we competed, we did it, right? We did it. We got on stage, and that feels amazing. But I think what feels even more amazing is that training was fun this year. Like I had a lot of 2020, 2021, 2022 that training was not very fun, and I was not very consistent. And I was talking to somebody the other day, and I was like, I honestly don't know if I made any progress since 2020. Like, I think I made up some ground that I lost when I wasn't training. But like, so it was tough there for a minute. And I think that I have come back to genuinely enjoying and valuing training for the sake of training is huge. And that feels incredible. And then to have it all obviously culminate into the successful bodybuilding season was awesome, and felt like a breakthrough in the sense of like I'm a bodybuilder now, right? Like I'm here. I feel like I'm part of the community, all those things. And I feel like now I can say I'm in my off season, and I can say like, what improvements can we make from the last season? Like, there's just different conversations I can have with myself and my coach and friends and, peers, everything. So that feel like a big one. And I'm in almost always, I'm super proud of how the prep went and how I navigated it. I think there's one little thing that's not that I'm disappointed with or that I'm upset with, but it's just like, I think it was as good as it could have been given who I was as a person at the time. And, I'll circle back to that, but, I'm super happy with that. On the PhD front, right? Like it's kind of, I feel like I'm starting, which is so funny because it's like I have a year left of grad school at this point. But, now what is that, 4 or 5 years in, whatever it is. Now I'm like, I get it now. Like I know how to do this. I know how to manage the time. I know how to recruit subjects and schedule them and manage all that stuff. I know how to kind of lead the lab team. I know how to, like, taking a leadership role is like, that's a big thing for me in and of itself. All of that stuff, how to do the writing and how to learning about the different people in the lab and Dr. Zordos and everybody, like, what does their workflow kind of look like? How do I work with that so that it's, as smooth running of a thing as possible? And learning those things feels like a breakthrough to me, on that front, and starting to think about, well, if I'm graduating in a year, what are the next steps? I should start working on that stuff now. And so I think, academically being in a place where I'm finally feeling more comfortable with it, and like that's been great. But a lot of it has just been kind of like showing up, clocking in, doing the thing, clocking out at the end of the day. Like a lot of it, I'm still in the place that you were at, where you're just like, it's monotonous. It's a lot of a similar thing. And, you just got to get the work done, basically. Right. But, so there's that, there's some kind of breakthrough stuff with that, but not a ton. I think the biggest thing I reflect on, well, I guess I should also say, like, coaching career stuff, has felt in some ways similar, in the sense of like, just continue to do your thing, continue to get better at the craft, continue to, all of those things. But then also, like, I don't know, it feels like again, this sounds, I don't want this to sound arrogant, but like finally getting a little bit of recognition feels pretty damn good, right? Like you spend so many years just like shouting into the void and hoping that somebody sees it. And, to this year, just getting to, be on some people's podcasts and just interact with people that, like you said, people you've looked up to for a long time, and that's just been awesome. Like the last episode of the training arc was like a video. I got to meet up with Lane Norton and record a video with him. Like, how cool was that? And I'm just so grateful for all that stuff. And I think it's a similar thing to what you're saying, of like, you have to enjoy that moment, but ride the wave. Don't let it just let you relax, or make you relax. So you got to keep it going, keep the momentum building. So it's like, now I have excitement around, okay, well, how do I keep doing that? Right. And I think so much of it is just keep doing what you're doing, right? Just keep doing good work, try to level up some places where you can, but like, don't overthink it too much. Right. Like, I never want to be the guy who's like trying to play the social media game and like figure out the algorithm and all that. Like, some of those things I think are worth thinking about for sure. But, at the end of the day, it's always just about providing value to people, doing a good job, doing good work, connecting with other human beings, like all those things that we talk about all the time. So, but nonetheless, right, that's been really nice to feel like there's been a little bit of I can see a little bit of light now, right, as we're working through this tunnel of trying to make it, right, and trying to have some sort of trying to have a career lined up for after I graduate, essentially, right. That starting to see a little bit of return on that has been great, and I'm excited to see what we can do to keep it rolling. But I think the biggest thing has been, this has been a crazy year for me, like personal life, emotionally, right? There, I've had a lot of moments in the past few years where, kind of being confronted with some pieces of myself I don't like a ton, or that I wish were different, or that I wish I was better at this thing, or whatever. And I guess just to be candid, right? A lot of those things are related to, I have a hard time not working, right? Like, I love working. It's fun. I genuinely enjoy what I do, but I have a hard time turning that off to then go spend time with my girlfriend, for example, right? Or like the things that really matter in life. Sometimes I have a hard time really being present in those moments, because I'm like, oh, I could be working on this thing. I could be, responding to this client who just sent me a DM, or I could be whatever. And so I think that I've been really trying to navigate that the last couple of years. And then also this, something I've learned about myself, that I've always kind of said, my my emotional range, right? If 10 is like pure joy, amazing, 0 is like utter depression. I'm kind of like, my bandwidth isn't 0 to 10, right? It's more narrow, kind of in the middle a lot of the time. And I've always, I've kind of thought about that. I'm like, yeah, that feels right. And, and I still think that there's something to that. But I think that I also have come to realize that I think the thing I don't experience, or perhaps let myself experience, is like passion a ton, right? And passion can be good and bad. It's rage and anger, it's love and joy, right? It's a huge spectrum. And I think that I had a big stoicism journey a handful of years ago, and I think I went a little too far. And I think that I actually like dampened some of those emotions within myself, and I don't really like that very much, and it's caused some tension in my relationship. And so this year, the breakthrough that I've really had is like, man, I've had a lot of really hard conversations with my girlfriend, who is amazingly patient and honest. And I'm so grateful that she's willing to have those hard conversations and not just leave, right? Like, she knows that we have something really cool, but I have some things that I really need to work through and improve, and all that, so, and she's taught me so much about that. But I think also seeing an amazing therapist has been huge for this. And like, the breakthrough on that feels like I'm finally, this sounds so bad, but it's like I'm finally trying. Like, it feels so weird to be like, yeah, I'm trying to work on having a wider emotional bandwidth, or I'm trying to work on being better at putting work aside and being present with this person I'm hanging out with in person. And stuff like, it sounds so weird to say that, and it's like, well, how do you even work on that? Like, what does that mean? And that was such a weird thing for me, that I just kind of was going through, and like, I wasn't really making progress with it because I wasn't really intentional. I didn't know how to be intentional with changing those things. It's such a weird abstract thing. I don't, but now this year I feel like I've made a breakthrough of like, okay, now we have some tools that, I don't want to say too much, like specifically because I think a lot of it's personalized to me that, I've gotten through therapists and stuff, but the last thing I want is to give people things that aren't the right fit for them, and it makes it worse. But that's been so huge, dude. And I think that it was even leveraged more through the bodybuilding prep, right? And this is sort of what I was mentioning about, I'm so proud about almost all of it, that I think the only piece that was a negative was that as my energy levels decreased, it made it even harder to really be present and in the moment and stuff. And I think that I did as good a job as I could have at the time, that it certainly could have been a lot better. And, it's not that it was a super negative thing per se. It was just sort of like a lack of really good. It was just sort of like nothing. And, but that's not what I want, right? At the end of the day, I want to have fun with people that I care about, So yeah, man, I think that breakthrough has been huge, of like, okay, we're finally intentionally working on those things that are quite literally the tools to have a fulfilling and happy life, right? Of connecting with other people, of having those experiences with other people, of not being anxious about stuff all the time, right? Like that's a huge thing for me. Like I've missed out on so many experiences because I didn't want to spend the money on it, or I didn't want to travel, or, all those things. And now I sort of jokingly earlier, the thing was like March or something, maybe, there was a big stand-up comedy fan. Shane Gillis was coming close to us, if anyone knows Shane. And the tickets were expensive, right? But we really wanted to go. And I was like, sort of half jokingly, like, memories over money, right? I just kind of threw that out. Let's do it. And that stuck with me. I'm like, that's another big thing, right? At the end of the day, are you going to remember the $80 you spent on these tickets, or do you want to remember the experience of seeing this person who's hilarious and experiencing it with your friends and all this stuff? And just trying to really embrace that side of life so much more. And see, even as I'm talking through this, it's kind of clicking together even more, right? This is why reflection and talking to other people is helpful. Of this feeling of like, okay, I've been grinding for a long time of trying to get, trying to coach and make content and get your name out there and try to build a career and all this stuff. And I still love it. I still will continue to do that. But like, there's a balance there that you got to have. And it's finally clicking into place for me that I have to have that balance. And that sounds it's like I finally learned how to be a human being. That's kind of what it feels like. It feels, I don't know, it's like a different dimension opened up in the world. And I'm not great at those things yet, but I'm making progress, and that feels fantastic. And I never want it to mean that I don't do a good job with work and all that kind of stuff, right? But I think it can only make work better in some ways, So yeah, man. I mean, I think that's, I don't know, maybe that kind of feels short and sweet in some ways, but I think that's really encompasses the year of like, I feel like it's really been a very positive year in a lot of ways, despite some sort of like some very not positive experiences that led to some of those things. But yeah, I mean, damn it if that's not where growth comes from, right? You have to see the opportunity for growth for it to happen, right? So yeah, man, I don't know. I'm really grateful for all that stuff. I'm really grateful for doing this with you. Like, this has been likewise to what I said this earlier, like the same thing that you said. This is such a fun, rewarding, valuable thing that gives another sense of purpose, gives another outlet, gives another reason to talk to somebody, connect with somebody, reflect, all of those things. And it's just been amazing. And so, yeah, as we kind of get close to the end of the year and thinking about, well, how do we continue to build on this? Like you said, we'll have like an episode where we kind of talk about this stuff more, but I'm with you, man. Like, it feels like the wave is there and we just got to kind of keep running with it.
We're just gonna be professional surfers, honestly, at this point. Let's just do is gonna ride the waves. We got to see which waves out. We won't catch this one. We'll get this one. But yeah, I think, I really appreciate your honesty, this good reflection here, the vulnerability, right? Talking about stuff that maybe doesn't get talked about enough, and that can be hard to talk about, right? And I think it's so important. And again, another reason why we always like to do this and be authentic, right? Which is one of the things we always appreciate. And something you had said, and something we always say, which I want to touch upon, is we talked about the idea of just being human and being good humans and what that is. And it's not that we just say that because it's, oh yeah, it's a cool thing to say, or it's just like, I don't know. It really is powerful because sometimes, again, like in my journey, how I experienced, I kind of forgot what that was, right? So maybe I repeat it so much to myself because it's a reminder, or maybe I just want other people to bring awareness to that too. But I think being human means, right, again, like I said, having these peaks and valleys, going through times of uncertainty, feeling sad, feeling lonely, feeling happy, feeling excited, feeling confused, right? Feeling, period. So I think it's important to acknowledge that, to know that that's a thing. And I think it's especially true because I have a question for you. Do you think that it was like, maybe did you experience these things later in life than you had wanted or thought would happen? Or is that like something you've thought about? Like, okay, like I'm 30 and I experienced this. Like, I wish I knew this earlier. Or it's like, I think that concept, like, is that something that you have thought about or come across in your journey in general, or the timing of this stuff?
Yeah. So I think I've always had some degree of it. But I think so. There was a big thing with my brother and I. Our relationship changed pretty starkly about 10 years ago. That I think that, and I hate even saying this because it sounds like such a stupid buzzword, but like, it was emotionally traumatic, right? That I think has greatly impacted my willingness and ability to really form deep connections with people, which is so funny because, like, when I'm talking to somebody online, when I'm on a podcast, when I'm with a client, whatever, right? No issues at all. It's awesome. And I'm super present. I'm super engaged. I'm like, this is us. This is amazing. Right. But it's the people who are in person next to me that I'm the closest with, which unfortunately for my girlfriend right now is her. And so for whatever reason, it's that extremely close, relationship that seems to now suffer a bit from that, of where I just, subconsciously, I think it's some sort of fear of rejection, right? That comes up, but we're working through that. Shout out therapist. But it's, I think that has made it quite a bit worse over the last 10 years now. But hey, it's never too late to improve it, right? And start working through it. So there we are.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of why it was a very hard question. So I appreciate you tackling that and giving some good insight. But that's why I asked it, because I think so many people really think they need to have their entire life figured out by age 20. Once you get out of high school, once you get out of college, whatever it is. And I think if you put your expectations that high, you're only going to set yourself up for more failure and sadness. And it's really not worth it. So like I said, like, right, we're turning 30 next year, and everyone's like, oh, 30, oh. It's just like, dude, no, like I'm only just figuring this stuff out, right?
Yeah.
And I'm growing so much, and that excites me because there's so much more to come and so much more to face and to, overcome again. And it's like that is just life. And that's why, we talk about being human, and this is a continual process, right? We can't avoid, any type of suffering, right? It's going to happen. But if we acknowledge that and we, look at it as some type of challenge and try our best to attack it, right, it's going to be just beneficial and as best as it can be in the end. So yeah, I think it's this is why it's important to remember that we're human, that this is just part of it, and that it's okay to feel these things, to just feel again. So I think, it's a tough question, but I'm glad you had answered it in that way. And just, if there's anyone that's like listening that just is, we're here, PhDs, doing all this stuff, and we're like, we don't have it figured out. So if you think that no one really does, even the people who you think do really do not. So like, just don't put that pressure on you. It's really not worth it, right? This is just
100%.
this is where that kindness to yourself is just so important.
Yeah.
I know that kind of sounds cliche too. Is you got to be kind to yourself, but it's so true, and you don't really recognize that till you feel it, right? Until you have these times like, damn, I wasn't kind to myself, or I went through all these difficult things. I kind of lost sight of who I was or what's important. And again, that's also part of life, but having that reflection and looking at that in a way of how can I be better, rather than, well, that's just who I am. It's done. Like this is the only path then. And that's again not a positive way to look at it. So I think it's, just talking about it, listening about it, being open to these things, finding a place where you can discuss it with others, right? Whatever it is, it's just we're all going through it, right? We're especially like not to be like, well, this is how the times are, but the life just is tough. It is, but it's enjoyable. That's just part of it. And I think there's so much good out there. As much as social media and the news, all that wants to throw the bad at you, like it's again so important to bring light to those good things, right? And that's what we're maybe trying to do through our bodybuilding niche podcast. But but hey, like you said, if it's just one person, that's important too. And I think people don't realize how powerful that can be too, right? You have a close group of friends. It might be 1, 2, 3, 4 people, whatever it is, but it's really not about the quantity. It's all about the quality, right? And that's so much more true for friendships and all that. So
sure.
yeah, just remember that you're human. Honestly,
Yeah, man.
it's
and just
yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like that's why I think actual intentional reflection like this, again, doesn't have to be with another person, but like you had said, it is so helpful, and don't undermine it, right? So maybe if you're listening, take this as that push, like we always talk about, hey, pushing you into the next step is do that reflection, sit with yourself. If you need some guided questions, look them up, ask us, right? Just whatever it is. I think it's important to do it, because it's going to be hard. Don't get me wrong. I think it was hard, honestly, for me during this podcast. I was like choking up and trying to like hold back tears, talking about like, hey, I was a bad friend, or like I felt really shitty. And that's, no one really likes to say that, right? Or hear that or acknowledge that, but it's important, right? And how I then frame it and use that and move forward with that is also important too. And that makes all the difference. And I'm, as you can probably tell, I'm using it as positive as way as I can, riding the wave, right? And excited for good things to come. So like, I think it can be so helpful.
Yeah, man. Very well said. I think the only thing that I'll add is just to sort of underscore what you said too, of like, we put so much pressure on ourselves to have it figured out, and I think I'm sure you can relate to this. As we've gotten deeper and deeper into the industry, into all this stuff, both academia and like coaching online, blah blah blah, whatever. I'm not going to mention any names. I'm not going to say any specifics. Nobody is perfect. Like, everybody is just a normal, real person. They might have more of it figured out than we do, right? Maybe they make more money, maybe they have more followers, maybe they have a better relationship, maybe they whatever, right? But no one has everything perfect like it seems like they do from the outside. It's everybody's just normal, and to me, like, that's so comforting, right? Like, these people we've looked up to for so long, we feel like they're like gods amongst men. Like, they're just normal people, dude. Like, so why do I have to be perfect? None of them are, right? So let's just do the best we can, and when we fall down, let's try to rise again a better man or woman, or whatever, and we do our thing, right? That's like you said, that's life, right? It's not always easy, but those times are what make the good times feel even better, right?
Yeah, so well said, and I think that's a nice way to wrap it up. So yeah, again, thank you all for listening, for being here, for our reflection. Again, hopefully it sparks some action on your end. And hey, if you need a space to talk about that, we got the Discord. It's a pretty cool place to hang out. And, we have that little community there. We're trying our best to grow it. It's small, but again, it's about the quality. So it's something, again, we're trying to have there. Just again, if you're not familiar, just come in, hang out. So yeah.
And if you're watching this on the YouTube channel, talk to us in the comments, man. Tell us, reflect on your year. We can talk back and forth a bit there too.
So many avenues to talk, right? It doesn't have to necessarily be in person. We can chat.
DM us on Instagram.
Instagram.
Whatever.
We're just normal people too. We like to talk. So yeah, we really appreciate you being here. And hopefully 2024 was a great year for you, and that the next year is even better. And like we kind of alluded to, we'll talk a bit more about in the future episodes of how we're riding this wave, what it's going to look like, what 2025 has in store for the training arc, for us, for everything. So a lot of great stuff to come. We always appreciate you being here. As always, we'll see you at the next one.
There you go. Happy holidays.